So now let's bring up our test machine. So right now we have the wired Ethernet adapter enabled, but we have the wireless adapter disabled. So at this point, also let's bring up the authentication activity page. And you can see the machine, or our machine, has already gone into our past map authentication and now sitting on the YCWA. So at this point, if you go and open our web browser, we should be presented with the default guest portal page. So before we move on further, let's say what do you need to do to customize this portal page, just to make a little, for example, logo change or background change to fit your look and feel of your organization. So what you can do without having to create a full-blown customized login page, you can go back to administration and then settings. And then under general, which is a portal theme that we skipped earlier, here with the login page logo, we can upload a new file. Click browse, and I believe I put that under local disk. And right here with a logo. And let's also change the background image. So upload new file, browse, select the file, and then save. Now let's go back to this and then just click refresh. And you can see now the logo has changed. Here we just put our LabMinutes logo there, as well as the color or the background of the page. Okay, so as simple as that you can do, but if you want to go into a little bit more detail as far as putting like links and or other logos in there at the customized location, then you might need to go or look into a full-blown customized like a HTML page. But for now, let's settle with this and go ahead and continue with our testing. So first we have to create a user account. We're going to start off with our John Doe user 1 or guest 1. So here you have to go to the sponsor portal page. And the URL for that is basically the IP of your policy service node and the port 8443 if you leave it at default /sponsor portal. And you can see the theme or the portal theme that we changed actually affect the sponsor portal page as well, although the logo is a little skew. But the background is the same. So now with the user, we said we have admin1 to be our sponsor. Then log in. Okay, you can see anything else but the login page does not get changed. And now we could go create single account. And you can see a little star or asterisk in front of these attributes. These are the mandatory field that you need to fill out since we switched that from optional to mandatory. So first name, we'll make it John. Last name, we'll make it Doe. Email address, we'll call it john@labminutes.com. And company, let's call LabMinutes. Everything else, leave it blank. Role will be guest. Time profile, if you remember, we assign all the time profile that we have to this particular user groups. So let's select LM 1 day, which is what we have. Time zone is default. Template is also this default. So submit, and here we have the username. Since we specified to use the email address as the username, we bring up a quick notepad so I can type that up. You know that email is john@labminutes.com, and then for the password, it's the scroll A581 CM3YOK. All right. So now let's log in using that credential. Actually, before I go ahead and log in, if we go back to view guest account, you can see the account's created and the status is awaiting initial login. If you click into that, you haven't really seen the start time or anything yet. So we'll come back and look at that. Now click login. Looks like, make sure I got that right. Okay, so we now successfully logged in and presented with the acceptable use policy page. Let's click accept. It seems to specify to present that in the first login. And now we're getting a login successful. Please retry the original URL. And if you go to Cisco.com, you can see now that we have internet access. Okay, as far as the authentication log, we'll see that right here. This is where we came in, and the first time we have an incorrect password. This is why authentication failed, and then this one we succeeded. And then we've got a COA that went out to the switch, and then we got switched to internet only authorization profiles. Okay, so now if you go and look at the switch, see if we can pull up the switch, authentication session, port 19. Now we are sitting on internet only already. And actually ISE even tells the switch, the username, and everything looks good. Okay, now if you go back to the sponsor portal page and click on the user one more time, and now since the user has successfully logged in once, the account has already started. And this is start time, and since we gave it 1 day, we have a 1 day of the expiration, and now the account status is active. Okay, so usually once the user is logged in, they should stay logged in for the whole duration unless the session expired, or for example if they're removed from the network, if they disconnect a LAN cable, for example. Otherwise, there's also a way to force user to lock out or lock out the user. And the way to do that is if you go to the operation catalog, and under catalog, you go to the session directories. Let's wait for it to come up, and then we got radius active session. So that will basically allow you to view all the active sessions, whether or not it's been authenticated. So here we've got John at LabMinutes.com, and you can see the auth method is WebAuth, and you got session IDs and everything. So if in order to terminate the session, you can go to COA, and there's a little icon here you can click, and then under the drop down, you can force reauth, or you can just terminate the session. So let's try to terminate the session. And then if you go back to the monitor page, we should see a little COA went out, which is right here. And now if you go back and reload, let's see if we get the session back. If you try to go to a different page, you can see now we get redirected back to the portal page. And let's reload the session page one more time, and now we are back on with the still at map, and the username is already gone. So okay, so that's how you force the session to terminate. Now that we are pretty much done with the wire, let's move on to wireless. So let's close that out. On the adapter settings, disable the LAN adapter, and then enable the wireless adapter. Okay, so now we can connect to LM guest, and again, this is the wireless map, so it's pretty much open. If we go back to the monitor, you should see the MAC address coming in already. Okay, it looks like we're now connected. Let's make sure that we are connected. Status, and we got an IP address, so it looks like we're good. And now let's go ahead and open our browser. Okay, so here again we redirected to the guest portal page, but this time we're going to use a second guest to test, which is Jane, and we want to allow Jane to do self-service, so you click on self-service, and now we're being asked to fill out the information. So let's do that. Jane Doe, email address is jane at LabMinutes.com. Company, also LabMinutes. Okay, let's make sure we copy that out. Time zone, stick to US Pacific, and we'll click submit. Okay, now the password is generated. Let's copy that out as well. And let's reopen the browser so we get redirected back to the page, and we can use our new account to log in. Okay, now we add the acceptable use policy just like before, and now we successfully log in. And if you go to Cisco.com, we have access to internet. Okay, so successfully lock in guests. If you look at the activity page, COA went out, and then we become we are assigning the WLAN internet only. Now on the wireless LAN controller, if you go to monitor and client, here we are. You've got profile LM guest. It doesn't really tell, or the username doesn't really show up, unlike the switch. Other than that, I got VLAN 64 and the ACL that was pushed to, or the name ACL that was pushed from ISE to wireless LAN controller is LM internet only. Okay, now for wireless, let me show you if you go ahead and disconnect. Let's say the guest somehow walked from one place to the other, or put their laptop to suspend or standby mode, and then bring it back up. So trying to reconnect. You can see you get connected right away, and if we reopen the browser, you immediately gets the internet access. So as long as the session hasn't really timed out on the wireless LAN controller, the user will be able to have access to the network. So the way to, if there's for any reason you want to force them out the network, we can go back to that catalog session directory and radius active session page. Let's reload that since we're now on wireless. And you can immediately locate the one that said WebAuth. Okay, make sure we have the correct MAC address 1267, which is the one we've been seeing, 1267. And again, launch a COA, and we can terminate the session. So click Run. Go back to the monitor, make sure that the COA went out. Back authentication. Okay, the COA went out right here. And now we're back on WLAN CWA. So if you go to play, for example, let's click around, and now we are placed back to the guest portal page. Okay, so this session, or this active session page is pretty helpful. If you anytime runs into the user where they're trying to log in and then gets a little message that said the session has expired or missing sessions, then you can just come here and try to locate that exact session, force it out, and ask the user to reconnect. From time to time, it seems to be a bug at this point on ISE that Cisco is trying to address. But if you come across that, a quick fix for that without having the user to go through the reboot and all that is to basically force a new session by deleting or terminating the old one. Okay, now before we wrapped up, let's go back and look at the sponsor portal page for the admin one. Since admin one's allowed to manage all the accounts, you can see the one that is created by self-service also shows up right here, which is Jane at LabMinutes.com. You click on that, he even has capability to adjust some of these or even suspend it. Okay, so let's try that real quick. Let's say we want to suspend the Jane's account, and as soon as you do that, he can't even see the password there. So it's trying to lock in one more time with Jane. Here, paste, log in. And you can see right here a message specifically say the account has been suspended. Okay, go back to the monitor page, and now we've got a fail authentication. Obviously, we can always go back and unsuspend Jane's account right here. Click suspend. Actually, you can actually do that on the other page, or this page is right here. I just say suspend or reinstate. And this time, let's say Jane wants to change the password because we allow the user to, right here with the link change password. And now Jane has capability, or the user has capability to change the password, but you need to retype the current password. For the new password, need to make sure it meets the complexity. So let me do Cisco12345 and see if that's enough. So it looks like you need a special character, so let me put like a underscore at the end. Okay, looks like the password has been changed, so I'm going to log in just to make sure that password that we changed to has taken effect. Okay, and now we are now on the login successful, and you can see we don't even see the acceptable use policy because we specified the only for a user to encounter that the first time they log in, and this is not Jane's first time to log in. All right, and now we have internet. Okay, so that wraps up our video on guest sponsor and guest login on Cisco ISE. Thank you for watching LabMinutes.com. I'll see you guys in the next video.